In this video, we're sharing two amazing coffees from the Gesha Village farm that is part of this month's limited box here at April. Welcome, my name is Patrick Rolfe and this is Coffee with April. For this video, we're back discussing one of our limited boxes, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's basically a selection of what we believe to be the best tasting, the rarest, and the most kind of competition caliber coffees we can find that we share with you guys basically every single month. So these coffees come from basically our partner farmers, but also from different partners around the world, where we basically cup coffees continuously and we find what we believe is tasting the best. And for this month, we are returning to one producer and a farm that we've been working with every single season here at April. Also a farm that I've been working personally with for much longer than that as well. The farm's name is Gesha Village. It's located in Ethiopia. Most of you already know this. For those of you that don't, a little bit of a short backstory. So outside of the Gesha town in Ethiopia is where you found the original Geisha varietal, basically. That Geisha varietal back in 1931 was brought to Panama and cultivated there. Now, what Adam did, the owner of this estate, was that he started farming back in 2010 in an area very close to the Gesha town, and there he identified what they believed to be the closest to the original Geisha varietal that was brought to Panama. They gave that the name 1931, and they've been cultivating it ever since at the farm. Now, the farm is divided in a few different blocks, and this is important because they all have slightly different micro terroirs, and that's going to have an impact on the taste. So even though the varietal is the same, it will taste a tiny bit different. Over the years, we've been working with different lots from different parts of the farm, and we have identified the 1931 Geisha as one of the most kind of value for money geishas you can find throughout the coffee industry. We've always been very excited to have the coffee, and we always make sure to feature it because it is such a good coffee. It has all of the characters that you're looking for in a specific Geisha coffee. You have the florality, you have the white grapes, you have the tropical notes, and the citrusy aspect that comes from most Ethiopian coffees. Now, these two specific lots, we're just gonna walk you through a tiny bit of details before Adam actually recorded a little bit of clip from Addis as well, and he's gonna tell you more about the coffees. Now, the two lots that we have selected is the E15 and 40. Now, every season they give each coffees different lot numbers. This season is a bit different, at least in constellation of those numbers, because the harvest has been a lot smaller, mainly due to COVID. The first lot, the E15, is basically what they refer to as an experimental lot. So that's when they're adding processing that they are testing or haven't done before. In this case, is a honey anaerobic process. So basically it starts with a harvest. That harvest is 24th of December back in 2020. And the coffee is depulped down to a honey, then fermented in tanks for 72 hours. After that, it's taken out and dried for another 25 days on raised beds. Now, we worked with this experimental processing before coming out of Gesha Village. I've actually personally competed with it as well, and what it does is that it just amplifies the kind of tropical aspect of these coffees, making it even more intense and more layered and complex in the final cup. Now, the second lot is the 40, and this comes from the Oma block on the farm, which actually the E15 does as well. This is a fully natural processed. We always purchase natural processed coffees from Gesha Village. For those of you that have been following us for a while knows that it's very rare for us to do that in terms of natural coffees. However, they're so clean, the taste profile on this farm, that you can hardly detect that it's actually a natural processed coffee. So we're always super excited. This specific lot was picked basically in the beginning of December, also in 2020, and it was dried for 36 days under shade on raised patios. And the taste difference we have here is that now you're gonna get a slightly cleaner cup than the anaerobic. You're gonna have a lot more citrusy, a lot more jasmine, a lot more peach. So it's not as tropical, but it's absolutely beautiful in terms of taste anyhow. So that was a little bit of information about the two lots. And now over to Adam in Addis, and he will tell you a bit more.
Hey Patrick, how are you? Adam Overton here from Gesha Village, and welcome to our office and our cupping table here in Addis Ababa. So yeah, I was asked to talk about the lots that Patrick chose for this season and just give a little background on those specific lots. First, I'd like to say I really appreciate Patrick and the work that he does and the work that he does with our coffee and really presenting our coffee in the best light and roasting it expertly, so I appreciate that. So let's see, there's two lots to talk about. The first lot is lot 2140. That's a lot from the Oma farm area and the Geisha 1931 variety. So that, and that's a traditional natural processed coffee. So that's a coffee that Patrick buys year in, year out, and always, usually from, or always that variety, and from the later part of the harvest. So the Geisha 1931 harvests maybe 2 months later than other coffees on our farm, and just genetically. And we believe that really imparts more complexity and also flavor intensity into the cup. So we're known for coffees, natural coffees that exhibit extreme clarity. So what you'll find in this coffee is, nothing muddled and really very clear, many clear flavors, and where you can really enjoy the complexity of the cup and taste those different flavors jump out at you. So you'll have jasmine, different floral notes, a strong citrus acidity, citrus characteristic with stone fruit, and often some more exotic lychee or different type flavors. So that's one lot. The second lot is quite interesting. It's a new process for us. It's lot 2115 or E15, and this is something that from our special fermentation series. So this is a new process that we did this year, and it's a process that we collaborated on with Camilo from Santuario Project in Colombia. He's a good friend of mine. He's one of my coffee mentors. So this is a process that he's been working on for many years, and then we have our own take on it. So it's called the Mosto process. So it's an anaerobic fermentation. So the coffee cherries are pulped, then they're put into oxygen-free environment. And then the difference with this is that there's an extraction of coffee juice from the coffee cherry, and that's a quite extensive and proprietary process. But you extract and filter this juice, treat it a specific way, add it to the tank, and then the enzymes and that are within the cherry juice are used as a fermentation agent, and it really imparts unique flavor characteristics and really a specific intensity to the cup and to the flavors. So this is our first year doing it, and really it's been some of them our most successful coffees. Then for this Mosto fermentation, then we treated it as we left the mucilage on the cherries, and then we dried it fully in shade as we would a honey processed coffee. So it's got a number of things going on, and that's what Patrick chose, and I think you'll find it extraordinary, and best of luck. Enjoy.
First of all, we want to thank Adam for sharing some information about the coffees. We really appreciate his transparency and willingness to be a part of this. Furthermore, roasting. So when it comes to roasting, we have done basically one batch of each coffee. We're pushing 15 kilo batches, which you guys know that's what we're focusing on. It gives us a bit more control, and basically the ratio of energy we can put into the coffee in relationship to batch size is something that we feel continuously works really well on lowerings. We're always on larger batch sizes. Now, these two coffees are quite interesting. Keep in mind now that they're basically the same varietal farmed in the same part of a farm, but processed in quite different ways, right? And that's something that we can really see when it comes to the roasting. So both of these profiles are started with an initial burner of 100%, which is the highest amount of energy we can drop in, with identical in between protocols as well. Now, these coffees pretty much follow the same trajectory all the way up to yellowing, which in this case starts at 160. So when we're referring to yellowing, it's basically just a lot of the moisture of the coffee has been released, not all of it, but some of it, and we're moving into caramelization in a slightly higher degrees, and that's basically what is causing a yellowing of the coffee. And what happens here is that the two profiles follow all the way up until crack. But here's where it's interesting, because crack comes very differently for the two coffees. And when we roast a lot of different coffees in the setup that we have, we see a quite continuous degrees in terms of when we experience cracks. And when we look at lot 40, the full natural, we see that that is following our kind of estimated idea about where crack would happen. But when we look at lot E15, we see quite a big difference. So the anaerobic lot is cracking much, much sooner than what the natural lot does. And here's kind of interesting. They're both very stable after first crack, but because the E15 is cracking much sooner, we're ending up with a quite different time after crack and also quite different end temperature. So we're taking the E15 out on a much, much lighter color, but with a longer time after crack, which will then actually be 1 minute and 18 seconds, which in the world of April filter coffee sounds really, really long, but it doesn't taste like it. More about that later on. When we look at end temperature, it's at 204.6, which in relationship to lot 40 at 208.6, it's a massive difference. It's 4 degrees Celsius, which is normally would make also a big difference in taste. And the lot 40 has 1 minute and 11 seconds after first crack, which is quite continuous when it comes to geisha coffees of different variations. We had our Daterra coffees last month, and that was also a slightly longer time after crack. And the reason for that is that it just takes a bit more time for them to develop the color that we are looking for. Now, in terms of taste, this gets really interesting because we have two profiles that after crack has behaved very, very differently with two quite different crack times. And when we're tasting them, we can see two very different expressions in the coffees as well. Whereas the anaerobic lot, the E15, is a lot more yellow, it's a bit lighter, it's more floral driven. Has perhaps a bit more complexity. There's a hint of a spicy character in there as well, which we kind of categorize as something tropical. Whereas the E14 is actually quite red in the color. It's very fruit driven, has more of these kind of classic Ethiopian flavor notes, very jasmine-y, quite peachy as well, but has a bunch of red plums, a bit of strawberry vibe to it as well. So two very kind of different characters here, and two coffees that roast-wise behaves very differently, and also comes out tasting very differently, because that's also what we've been looking for here. And it's interesting to see how the same varietals farmed at the same place can have two so different expressions just because of the processing. When it comes to brewing this coffee, we recommend our kind of standard recipes to begin with a slight little twist. And we're going to give you a follow-up video on this, basically showing you the difference in how we deal with both the anaerobic and the natural, because there's quite an interesting discussion to have there. For those of you that can't wait for that video and want to brew it before, then we recommend a 12 to 200 ratio. When it comes to the natural one, and when it comes to the anaerobic one, we actually recommend you to go down to 11 grams. and more about that in a different video. With that, we want to thank all of you that supported us, got this box, and as always, we want to hear your thoughts on it. We want to have discussions on these coffees. They're really rare coffees with an extraordinary taste, and it's really interesting to discuss in the larger community what we think about these coffees. If you want a more in-depth discussion and have the opportunity to ask more questions, join our Patreon. That's where it happens. And with that, we would just want to say thank you for watching and have a great day. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.